Yeah, check this guy out. One big fat sound. So cool. All right, in today's live stream, we are going to cover how to add a feature to a web app. I work with web apps. I always start front end. I think that's important when you're coding, to always start front end. And there's a couple of reasons for that, but the most important being that focusing on front end first forces you to think in terms of the end result, the user's point of view, the actual problem that you're trying to solve. When you try to build something from the back end first, it's easy to get really buried in the details and end up building something super complex and amazing and powerful that nobody uses. And obviously that's bad. You don't want to build something that nobody uses. What's the point in that? You want to build something that lots of people use. In particular, you want to build something that people really need and would pay money for. I mean, that's usually what people get into coding for, is they're trying to build something that they can ultimately at some point charge money for, or at least have a consistent, strong following, that like an audience of people who really love that product. Well, if you build from the back end first, if you build out like a database, it's really easy to get carried away and build features that nobody wants. When you start with the front end, that becomes really impossible, because if you start with front end and you focus only on front end and you build out like features in front end, one, like it'll be really obvious that things are getting out of hand, because visually you can see it's not what you wanted, and you're forced to use the thing. So the more you iterate and the more you build and work on these applications, the like more frustrated you get having to work on these things. So it's going to get really obvious really quickly, like, oh, I'm building something that it doesn't work for me. So that's one thing. And then on top of that, if you build front end first, typically you're probably going to use something like Google Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity, something like that, because they're cheaper than those models like Lovable. If I can type right, lovable.dev. This one here. There's a few of these. There's bolt.new. There's now there's Google's got their own version. And these are really powerful, great tools if you do need to build a backend, but they get expensive. And like I mentioned earlier, it's easy to get carried away and start building things that you don't need. And in fact, these models often do that even when you don't want them to. They'll build out all these features and things in the back end that you don't want and don't help you. So if you start front end first, you're probably going to end up using Google Gemini, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Grok, one of those. And if you do that, then you're going to be forced, because the context window is smaller on these models. Like they won't put out as much code, like they physically can't. Then you're going to build smaller and more lightweight things. You're going to make them more efficient. You're going to use code more efficiently. Basically, like everything is better when you start front end first. I know it kind of seems counterintuitive. It seems like, don't you want to build the actual back end of an application first and actually like build the functionality first? Well, yeah, kind of, but not really. You don't want to build let me give you an example. So when I think it was DoorDash, if you look up the origin of DoorDash, MVP, and let's read this. Let me zoom in here. So DoorDash is like, that's a big multi-state operation. It's got probably a huge database now and a huge support team, and it's a big company, right? DoorDash, of it. Well, they didn't start out that way. The way let me read this. They originated from a Stanford class project in Palo Alto, evolving from a basic website with PDF menus and a phone number to test if local restaurants needed delivery, with the founders personally making the first deliveries to learn the logistics, eventually becoming the core delivery service we know today. So that's what they started. They started out with a simple website that was just PDF menus of local restaurants and a phone number that went to their phone, their cell or whatever they had at the time. And they just picked up the phone and they drove to go pick up the orders from people. And that was their MVP, minimum viable product. And now it's DoorDash. So if you were going to build DoorDash today, there's no way you would start like that. You would build out this huge database and you'd start hiring people and getting all these investors, and the way that people think applications are built or these large companies are built is way different than the way that they're actually built. Now, certainly that can happen. You can build an application starting with a database and investors and all that crap, but you don't need to. And I highly recommend not going that way, because for the majority of people, that's going to be way too hard. The barriers to entry are too many. Instead, just start small, start with something really simple and test it out. Put it in front of anybody. Put it in front of at least one person, starting with yourself, and then go from there. And like each of these applications that I've built, these are all just very simple web apps. And even still, the most popular of my applications are the most simple ones. Like this bulk folder and subfolder creator. This is one of my more popular apps. All it does, you put a list of names in this field right here, and a list of names in this field right here, and it will output a zip folder with folders named with this list of names, and then folders inside those with this list of names. That's all it does. Very simple. My other most popular application is barely an application. All it does is you put a Amazon gift card code in here and it will generate the link for you. So just generates a link. That's it. That's the most simple app that's possible to make. And those are my most popular. You would never guess. I mean, I have I have some really cool stuff on here, and it's less popular. Don't know why. That's just how it is. You got to start simple, test it out, see what people actually like. Like this right here is a universal media converter. We'll convert between MP4, MP3, MKV, and it's fast and free and doesn't require logging in or an account or anything. Doesn't require, it's no ads. And it's one of my least popular things. Why? I don't know, but I'm just building stuff out and testing and seeing what people actually like. And when I get a collection of things that people like, then I can go from there and build out features if I want to. So that's my rant on building front end first. But assuming that you do that, assuming that you take my advice and start building front end first, and even if you don't, this next, the topic of this live stream is still going to be relevant to you. If you want to add features on at some point to your application, it's really common to start getting errors at that point. It's happened to me many times, and I know it happens to other people because I see people post about it on Reddit. You go to add a feature or change something, and suddenly your application like loses functionality, or you get new errors, and then you get stuck in this error loop. I talked about it on my last live stream, the error loop, how to get out of it. Well, there's a way to avoid the error loop in the first place, and I want to show you what that is. So there's a feature that I want to add onto this little application. Again, this is one of my lesser least popular apps, but I like it and I use it. It's a Chrome extension file packager where you just dump in the code of each of these files. You can rename these, and it will, whatever you add in here, it'll package those up into files, and then save them as a zip, and then you can just install it as a Chrome extension. In fact, let me do that. If I try to click that button, it does let me know that I need to add an icon. So I'm going to remove the icon thing right here in the manifest, and I think that should work. Let's try it real quick, and we'll go to my extensions here, manage extensions, drag that new folder on, and now when I go to a new tab, it made this new tab page. So each new tab shows that. That's what that Chrome, that's the one that's built into like what this code is right here. But you can change out that code and create new Chrome extensions. So anyway, I want to add a feature to this application. So I've got the code here in a code pen so that we can work with it easily. Where do you start? Let's say that I don't have that conversation going with Gemini anymore, or ChatGPT, or wherever I got this code. But I do have the output code. I've got a starting place. Well, let me show you how to start. The first thing that you're going to do is copy all the code and start a new conversation. I'm going to use Gemini in this case. It seems to be the fastest, and it seems to do a pretty good job. So I'm just going to dump all the code there. I'm going to add a little prompt at the beginning, and I'll read that out in just a second here. That is, list every element, function, variable, and constant, and a very short description for each about what it does and how. List every element, function, variable, and constant, and a very short description for each about what it does and how. So, and then I dump the code. So hopefully Gemini will do exactly that. It'll read all that code and list every element, function, variable, and constant, and a very short description for each about what it does and how. Why do I want it to do that? Because the way that these models work is they work off of context. So the more context you add, the better. And in this case, the context that I want is this application. I want it to fully understand how this application works and what every piece of it does, and essentially why each piece is important. Because when I'm going to edit it, when I'm going to add new features, I don't want it to forget that important part. I want to start the conversation with it understanding every part of this application and how it works, and essentially why all of those things matter, why those need to exist for this application to work. If I'm not totally certain that it understands, like if I want to just like double check, then I can tell it double check that you fully understand each and every function by, I could just tell it to, by explaining in detail how each function relates to every other function. I could do something like that. In this case, it's mostly a JavaScript web app, so that's why I'm using the word function. But in your case, you can use whatever terminology is relevant. I really like using, and just to get back on my soapbox for a minute here, I love using JavaScript because it is natively supported in CodePen and in every browser. So you can use it on mobile. You can test it out on mobile. You can test it out in CodePen, and you don't have to have a server or do like there are ways to do there are ways to do other types of languages in front end, but JavaScript is by far the simplest and easiest. So that's why I stick with JavaScript. If you want to change the language at some point later, that's easy to do in any language model. Just dump the code and tell it to change it to that language. But it's good to start with. I mean, it kind of acts as like a connecting language where there are plenty of tutorials online walking through how to convert JavaScript to any other language, and any language model can reference those and do it for you. So so it's a good model to start with and work with to build out that initial MVP. All right, so now I'm happy. I think it knows exactly what each of these parts of the application do and why they're important. So I'm not going to keep going down this path. I feel like it has enough context at this point. Now I can start adding the features. But before I jump into that, the important part is to think through, first of all, are you sure about the features that you want to add? And second, in what order do you want to add them? In what order should you add them? It might be the case that one feature affects another. So maybe you want to add that feature first. Maybe you want to remove some features, but you want to add a feature and have it replace some of those other features. So when you're thinking about that's called order of operations. In which way, how do you want to order these steps? So I recommend pulling up a notepad. In this case, I have the Notepad app, and just start brainstorming what it is that you want to do. In my case, I want to add the ability for subfolders. Add the ability to create subfolders and set which files are in which subfolders. So, for example, I don't want to add the ability to set which files are in which subfolders before I add subfolders. So those are two steps. And let me go ahead and make this a numbered list here. So we're going to make this anytime. This is actually a good point. Whenever you're creating your plan of action, when you are determining which order of things you want to go, if you ever run into an and in a sentence, typically you want to separate that out into two steps. You just want to get really granular here and really specific, and add as much detail as you can. But I mean, to start with, we'll just be pretty broad. But when we go back and before we give this to the language model, we want to make sure that there's as much information as possible. And also, just as importantly, make sure that there's not any information in there that we don't want. So this is why doing a little bit of like this step right here, where we're writing it out and figuring out exactly which things we want to do first, and like it's a good opportunity to kind of like edit your thinking, and first put in anything on here that you think of, but then make sure you have a step where you edit and rethink. So we're going to add the ability to create subfolders, set which files are in which subfolders. We also want to be able to name the folders. Add ability to name the folders, or the subfolders. Again, it's important to be very specific, very accurate with your language. Now, not always. Sometimes I just like dump text in there, and I'm pretty sloppy with my prompts. But when you're working with edits to an application, that's when specificity and accuracy can be really, really helpful, and just eliminate so much unnecessary iteration. Because if you are too sloppy with edits, then because there's already so much code produced here, then there's a good chance that the application could go way off track really quickly. So I just want to avoid that if we can. There was something else I wanted to do here. Oh yeah, I want to be able to add ability to upload additional files and have them added to the final zip. And also, here's an and here. So again, let's just separate this out. Add ability to have additional files added to the final zip. And actually, in this case, I don't want it to be separate, because there shouldn't be an option for not having them in the final zip. So what I'll do here is just, let's see, add ability to upload additional files, making certain they are added to the final zip. There we go. That'll work. All right, and then what else? Let's see. Add ability to upload additional files, making certain they are added to the final zip, and then add ability to change the names of the additional files. Let's do edit. Edit the names of the additional files. And let's see. Is there anything else that I want here? Upload source icon. Oh, I want to add the ability to change, because you can add an icon here, but you cannot edit the name of the icon. Add ability to edit the name of the icon. The name of the icon, add ability. Actually, let's see here. Add ability to edit the name of the icon. Let's do name slash well, we can't change the file type in this because then I'd have to add a bunch of functionality that I don't want to add. So we'll just do edit the name of the icon, not the file type. And that's another thing to think about. Like whenever you add functionality, if you're pretty new to this, you may not know how that's going to impact the like the back end. And I'm using the term back end loosely here, but the actual code. Like sometimes when you add like certain file types or certain functionalities, it'll need to pull in a JavaScript library to add that. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it's just something to think about whenever you're adding functionality. Do I want to add more weight to this application? Do I want to make it more code? Do I want to add like that depth of that complexity to this application? Generally, I would recommend try to keep it as simple as you can, but then sometimes you have to add it in a JavaScript library or something. Like for example, with reading PDFs or reading docx files, they require libraries to read them, and so sometimes that can be a consideration. Let's see here, zip archive file name. Maybe I want to be able to rearrange these, like drag and drop. Now, that could add more complexity than I really want, but it might be a nice thing to have. You know, say you're editing this and file 4 is where like because generally when I use this application, what I use it for is I have like Gemini write the files for a Chrome extension, and then I dump them in here, and I export it. And then there's a lot of iteration with a Chrome extension because they can get really complex, and so you'll often run into errors and need to edit, and so there's a lot of back and forth. And sometimes the Gemini will put the files in one order and then they'll put them in a different order. And so it might be nice to reorder these so that it's easy to keep track of where they are. But I'm not going to worry about that yet. Let's consider that a next separate update. Okay, let's go with all of these. And I'm not going to have Gemini add all these yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have it write a report for us, write a detailed report of how adding the following features would impact the above code, and detail how it would need to be done to ensure ease of use for the user, intuitive UI and UX, good practice, practice design, and would ensure no errors. And then I'll paste that, and then I'll also say, do not write the code yet. Only write the detailed plan. And let's output that. So it's going to write us a report and a plan of how to create these features. And it might be a good idea for us to kind of look through its thinking. So for example, I just dropped that down here. Zeroing in on the core requests and refining the approach, updating file handling, concentrating on the new file format feature. I just want to get an overview of how it's thinking about these new features, because sometimes you can catch something that is going to end up being a problem later. And if you can catch it before it becomes a problem, that'll help with making sure there's no errors. Considering how to seamlessly blend binary uploads with existing text-based file blocks is a key issue. Blah, blah, file block concept, how core extension functions will be impacted by the changes. See, this is exactly what I wanted to do. How the core extension functions will be impacted by the changes. Because this is where problems always end up popping up, is that you add new features and the large language model that you're working with doesn't think about how it's going to impact existing features. And so this is important. This is exactly why we're taking these steps. The UI UX is adapting to subfolders in the new upload mechanism. I'm also ensuring the robust error, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now splitting file names. Okay. Impact report. This report, blah, blah, blah. Details architectural. Okay. The current application relies on a flat file structure where file names correspond directly. Enabling subfolders and binary uploads requires a shift from string-based. Okay, and then also, this is a good time to bring up my own considerations. For example, since this is a front-end web app, I'm worried that if we were to add like really large files, that might end up crashing the browser. So that's something that I thought of. So if you think of any errors that could pop up, now is a good time to bring them up. And in fact, actually, just right here, large file uploads could crash the browser. That's funny. That's exactly what I was thinking, but it thought of it too, so that's good. Large file uploads could crash the browser if handled as simple string. Solution: files are stored as blob or array buffer references. Okay, function, da-da-da. So I'm gonna just double check. So our blob or array buffer references the best and most intuitive way to handle large files. Just see what it says. Because I was already worried about it, so I just want to make sure that it's really thinking through this. I'm surprised that it thought of it before I had to tell it, but just in case. Let's see what it says. Evaluating their respective merits. Okay. Yes, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, also, another consideration is, well, let's see what it says. Would you like me to generate the updated code? I just want to make sure. I want to make absolute, like, this is a good opportunity to just bring up any other considerations you had. I want to make absolute certain this web app works on as many browsers as possible and works equally well on mobile and Mac and Windows browsers. I just want to make sure that it is considering that. Now, I didn't read if it said something about that here. Let's see, mobile. Yeah, it looks like it didn't have any. It didn't say anything about that. So I'm glad I brought that up. To ensure absolute compatibility across mobile, blah, 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 we need to add a compatibility assurance layer to the plan. Okay. Windows style. Ready to generate. Okay. Now, this is where we could be taking a bit of a risk, because it looks like it's thinking about this this mobile or making sure that it works across various browsers. It's thinking about that a lot differently as a separate issue than adding these features. And actually I've run into this before, where I was trying to update the current code at the same time that I was adding new features. And that is where you can get into problems. So at this point, I'm going to go back a step and make sure that I don't do all of this yet. So instead, and this happens a lot with when you're coding, I now need to make sure that we make these changes first. So I'm gonna try telling it instead. No. What I was gonna say is I could try telling it to make the updates to make it work across all browsers, make those changes first, and then the other edits. But I don't want to do that, because this context up here at the beginning is before we made any of the edits. So this is a common situation that you may not realize is where a lot of your errors are coming from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back a couple steps actually, and I'm going to take this into a new conversation. So let's go to Gemini, and I'm going to start over. I'm going to take that original prompt and put this here and add our code here and add our the rest of our, actually I could have just copied this whole prompt here. In fact, that's what I'll do. And let's see, I'm just going to go ahead and add this part of that prompt. Or this part of the conversation. And let's see what else. Write a detailed report. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. So I'm going to start this new conversation. Basically, I'm pausing on this one. And in fact, I'm not going to go forward with this plan. Instead, this brought up a good point, which is that we need to essentially create a new plan for ensuring that this works across all these browsers. So that's what I'm going to do first, and then we'll add on these other features. But I want to make sure that it's compatible across all browsers first, and then make those edits, and at that point still make sure that it's compatible. So this is going to be two new conversations. We're going to do this one first, and I'm going to put together a couple prompts here. I'm going to steal the one here. Write a detailed report of how adding the following features would impact the above code, and detail how it would need to be done to ensure ease of use for the user, intuitive UI and UX, good practice design, and would ensure no errors. Ensure absolute compatibility across mobile, desktop, Windows, Mac, and various browsers. Let's see if there's any more of that prompt that I could add. Oh wait, let's see something here. Yeah, I want to actually steal this part as well. Do not write the code. Now, it probably feels to you like we're kind of wasting time and going backwards. But this is where all your errors are coming from, is when you try to do too much at once and you don't give the right context, or you give like jumbled context. And I've done this so many times. I know how this happens because I've made these mistakes. Let's see if there's any more that I want to steal from here. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So here's my prompt. Write a detailed report of how adding the following features would impact the above code, and detail how it would need to be done to ensure ease of use for the user, intuitive UI and UX, good practice design, and would ensure no errors. I want to make absolute certain this web app works on as many browsers as possible and works equally well on mobile and Mac and Windows browsers. Ensure absolute compatibility across mobile, desktop, Windows, Mac, and various browsers. Do not write the code yet, only write the detailed plan. There we go. So this way, we can update the code so that it's already in a state that is good for updating, good for moving forward. Previously, if I were to add all these features and then try to make it mobile friendly, it might get too complicated, and it'll end up forgetting things or causing new errors. So this is the way to do it, is first put the code in the right conditions first, and then add your new features. All right, let's see if there's anything. The current code relies on mouse hover states and desktop with assumptions. Adding mobile compatibility requires restructuring it, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's have it go ahead. Go ahead and write the code. And I'm going to add another prompt that I have up here. Which is, please write the full, complete, and working HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code in a code box. I'm going to take out in a code box because Gemini has this canvas here, so I'm going to use canvas instead. For a web application with the following characteristics, the code must be fully complete and functional with no placeholders or comments. Include detailed console logs before, during, and after every step to provide comprehensive diagnostics. And I'm going to do one more thing, which is here is the original code for reference. Just to add that code one more time as context. And I'm going to go ahead and copy all this. Actually, not all of it. Let's see. into a fully responsive. Okay. Okay, just right here, and then I think I'm going to stop before. Usually it adds a testing phase. Summary of execution order, testing. Yeah, I don't want it to test things. So I'll just copy that much. And I'm going to put that right here in this prompt and see what it does. If it totally fails, it doesn't matter because we've got the original code and we're not that deep in. But I feel much better about moving forward with adding our new features. I will feel better about it after we update the code to make sure it's mobile friendly and works across various browsers. I don't want to be adding all those features before it's actually fully functional across multiple browsers. So we need to build it right first, basically. So and just in preparation, I'm going to go ahead and add a new Gemini window here, because once this outputs the code and it works, we're going to test it out. At that point, I will then go back and add those other features from this conversation here. But I first want to make sure that this works. And while we're waiting for that, love it. All right, let's see where we're at here. Okay, Chrome extension file creator looks the same, I think, which is good. A little different. It did change this design here, which I'm probably okay with because it was actually calling a little bit too much attention to this section, which, I mean, that section wasn't absolutely necessary. That's one of the things that you'll find when you make edits to an app is that the subsequent designs will often change in arbitrary ways or seemingly arbitrary, but often it's not totally arbitrary. At least my experience has been typically when those changes happen, it's because, or at least partially because what you're telling the language model is that you want to focus on something different than it previously was focused on. And so its emphasis has changed, and so it changes the design to kind of match that. That seems to be kind of the way it's working. I'm not totally certain about that, but it seems to be the case. Okay, there should be a functionality here where, let's see here, a need to add a icon here. Okay, that part works where it adds 3 versions of the icon, and it created that little toast message there. If we add a file here, okay. Oh yeah, we haven't changed any functionality yet. I forgot. Okay, so it should work exactly the same, and I think it does. Yeah, let's try that here. Same thing. And here there's no toast message, so I actually like the new version better. It added that. So something that we said gave it the idea that we should have a toast message, which is actually true. We should. So that's good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. In fact, actually, what happens if I try to zip okay, did it work? Oh, it seems to be the case that trying to create downloads from within Gemini seems like there's an issue with it sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this into CodePen and paste it in here. Let's try it from here. Okay, yep, that popped up, which is good. So let's add our icon. Okay, that's looking good. Oh, I don't love that. I don't want it to do prepare and then download. Actually, let's see, did it do that over here too? Maybe it did. Oh yeah, okay, downloads work. So I guess I was wrong about that. I don't love that. Prepare zip. Is there a way to not have to click prepare zip and then have to click again to download? 2 clicks is annoying. Can we do it in 1 click while still ensuring everything works as above? And then again, I'm going to tell it, do not write the code yet. Just report on my question. All right. I just want to hear what it says. Let's see how it responds to that. Because it may be the case, and maybe if I read through this somewhere, it may have said why it created that 2-step download process. Preparation phase, followed by a direct user. This bypasses aggressive pop-up blockers. Okay. Maybe for iOS and macOS, we could have a separate process or something. If that's a problem. You know, it's interesting doing all this vibe coding. You don't realize that you're learning things, whether you want to or not. Let's see here. Okay. Yes, we can implement a 1-click download flow. Okay. Including the technical challenge. Browsers distinguish between trusted events, direct user, okay, and asynchronous. events. Strict browsers, particularly Safari, block downloads triggered. Yes, okay. The solution, background pre-generation. To enable a single-click download, we must ensure the file is ready before the user clicks the button. This allows it, okay. We will implement debounce background generation. Performance. We must ensure the generation is efficient to avoid lagging. We'll use a timer to ensure generation only happens when the user stops typing. State management. And that won't cause issues with very large file uploads, or will it? How can we solve for that? That's one of the things that you want to think about when you're working on a front-end application is how do you handle large file uploads? You have to think about it on back-end applications even more, but on front-end applications, you have pretty strict limitations on what can be, what's even possible to be done. With back-end applications, you have more options for what's possible, but you have more limitations on how that can be done because you've got to get the data from the user's front end, like the front end of the application to the back end. And so that has its own challenges. But in the case of a front end only, your only limitations are like the browser's memory. There's some workarounds, but you've got to kind of think through those. They all have trade-offs. Yes, automatic generation with very large files causes performance issues. Yes, to solve this, we implemented a hybrid size threshold strategy. The application monitors the total size of your content. The application generates the zip in the background when you stop typing. Disables automatically to prevent freezing. The button refers to prepare zip requiring. Okay. This approach ensures the application remains responsive. Now, notably, I did not tell it not to write the code, so it's going ahead and writing the code. But hopefully with enough context now where it'll write it so that it doesn't cause errors. There's a chance because I didn't paste the full code again that it could end up causing more edits than we wanted and changing some things. But we're going to go ahead and just hope that it does it right. Typically with the application in this canvas, it'll typically do a better job of maintaining previous functionality. So that shouldn't be an issue, but let's go ahead and try this. Okay, let's do select icon. Yeah, we can do that. Let's go ahead and oh yeah, I keep forgetting we haven't added the new functionality of uploading files, but let's go ahead and upload this. All right, and looks like download zip works, and it seems like it works. Let's go ahead and go to our extensions page, and let's remove that custom new tab page and add in the new one that we just downloaded, and just appeared right there. Let's go ahead and test it out. Looks like it works. It did change the code of the it changed the size of the icons on the output code. So that is one of the issues that I was talking about, that it can add in these new edits that you didn't ask for. So I'm gonna see if I can go back a step here. Let's go back and let's go edit our previous prompt. Oh no, I can't edit it. Dang it. Or this one. No, I can't edit this one. Okay, I can edit this one right here. Do not write the code yet. Just answer. There we go. And then I'll go ahead and paste in this code in the next prompt, and just make sure. Actually, let me go back a step here. Go back to our original. Okay. Okay. Go ahead and update making absolute certain that you leave, or that you don't change anything that doesn't need to be changed, and you don't break anything. Let me say, here's the original code for reference. And let me go ahead and copy this prompt here. Please write the full working blah, blah, blah code. And then I'm going to take out this in a code box because we want to do it in the canvas instead. Code must be fully complete and functional with no placeholders or comments. Include detailed console logs before, during, and after every step to provide comprehensive diagnostics. All right, there we go. Okay, hopefully this version will include the correct code. Now, I could go and manually edit the default code that's in these fields, and not rely on Gemini to do that, because I can go through here in the actual code itself and find that code, and I think it's these ones right here, and I could sub that out for the original versions, but I think some of the problems would be this is written in a way that JavaScript can read it, and might end up causing issues. So hopefully we don't have to do that. Let's see where it's at with this coding process. We can follow along. Need some more good music. This guy, Rob the Bloke. Check him out on YouTube. He's only got 48,000 subscribers. He needs more. Guess that's a lot more than I have, so he's doing all right. This is good coding music. All right, so that seems to work, but I didn't see the toast message. I did see the download. Let's go ahead and remove the previous version and refresh this page. Sometimes that won't disappear right away. And drag the new one on there. Let's just make sure. See, it's still changed some things. So at this point, I could go ahead and tell it, like, hey, you changed some of the things that were in the default fields, and see if I can get it to update those. I probably would be able to do that. Let's go ahead and make an attempt at that. We'll go ahead and copy all of this. Looks like you accidentally edited some of the default text in the fields for the default Chrome extension, and now the icons display smaller on the final output extension once installed. Now, this isn't something that's causing an error, but it is, it's a change that I didn't ask for. So I'm going to try to see if I can get it to revert that. Please fix that and ensure you never do that again. And I'll put the original code. And actually, this is a good point. Maybe this is a point where I could start an entirely new conversation, and I could start from the beginning again. And this time I could make sure that my initial prompt tells the language model to review the code within these fields and detail exactly how that code should work. At this point, we're getting pretty far down this process, and this is a very iterative process, and you do ultimately need to start new conversations every so often, and you got to get comfortable with it taking time. But for the purposes of this coding session and this live stream, I won't drag it out all night for you, but that's something that you could do if you're really set on making sure the output is exactly right and making sure that it doesn't change anything you didn't want. Then all that means is that you need to do a better job of setting expectations from the beginning and adding that context repeatedly. The more context you add, the better. But in particular, when you're trying to make sure that something stays the same and doesn't change, then the more times you repeat that context, the better. There has to be a little bit of a balance, though, because we're wanting a change to be made, but we also want some of the things not to change. And so that's always a risk when it comes to making edits with a large language model and probably with a human coder as well, is that they may either have to make changes because of the way the new functionality works, or they just forget that things were a certain way and code gets changed, and that can happen on accident. So I'm not sure what's the case in this particular instance, but either way, it's something to watch out for and make sure that you're keeping a close eye on which functionality you want and which functionality is okay if it changes, and keep a close eye on what's happening with your code. Looks like his output this. Let's see if this works. Oh wait, first of all, let's check to make sure that the modal pops up, and it sure does. Go back and fix. And add our icon. That part works. We don't see the toast message, which I did like that toast, so we'll see if we can get that back at some point maybe. Download extension zip. Let's try that. Go to our extensions page, remove this one. Remove, refresh. And yeah, it's a lot of iteration, a lot of the same over and over. And keep it. Okay, there we go. That looks good. So it kept the functionality. Okay, that's great. Okay, that's great. And you also made the edits to ensure it's compatible. Is it compatible with an I think so. Or maybe it's an A. Compatible. Nope, it's I. Compatible across all the browsers and OSs. Let's just see what it says. If it didn't do it, then it might start editing it, but hopefully it won't. Yes, extension, okay, file includes the specific compatibility edits you requested. Okay, great. Okay, so now now we can go from here. Now we can go back to what we were doing before. We might just go ahead and double check, test all this. Let's test it on a smaller screen, and looks good. You could test it this way too, and like it seems like it's working. It looks like everything pretty much looks the same, but now hopefully is now mobile friendly and works across multiple browsers. I'm not going to go through and test them all right now, but now would be a good time to do that if I were actually worried about it. But I'm going to go ahead and trust that it is compatible across browsers, and so we don't have to go through that step that we went through before. So now let's go ahead and start our new conversation. And again, same thing. We're going to go list every element, function, variable, all that, into a new conversation here. And we're going to take our new code. And this time I'm going to say, in particular, note how well it works across every browser and operating system, including mobile. Also, take note of the default code in the fields, because that outputs a working Chrome extension that creates a new tab page. Take note of every element, CSS rule, and let's go ahead. Let's just tell it to go ahead and note all these things about the actual code inside those inside the fields here, because last time it didn't do that and we ran into a problem. Function, variable, and constant, and a very short description of each and how. Let's say in the default, and a very short description of each and how it is. Okay. All right. Now let's go ahead and run that. And at this point, well, we're going to hope that it gets enough context. We could, in fact, actually, when I ask it to do the edits, I'm going to paste this code. And in fact, I'm going to do it for a couple prompts in a row. I'm going to add all the code here. Because again, I want to make sure that it has that in the context. Here's a comprehensive, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now I'm going to go back here to our original conversation and look for that prompt that I wrote with all the edits. And I'm going to also add another feature that I wanted, which is that toast message. I really liked the toast message. So Gemini over here added it and then it took it away. So I'm going to make sure that it adds it. But I want to think about where in this process I wanted to add that toast message. I have the ability to create subfolders. I have the ability to name the subfolders, set which files are in which subfolders. I had ability to upload additional files, making certain they're added to the final zip. Had ability to edit the names of the additional files. And somewhere in here, I want to add a toast message. So I'm going to put it in the beginning because I don't want it to think that I only want toast messages for all these. Add toast messages for successful uploads and for successful uploads. I guess I don't care about successful downloads because that'll be pretty obvious. And ensure the toast messages work for the new upload functionality. And then I'm going to say, for reference, here is the full working code as it is now. And I'm also going to say, it's important that you don't forget or break anything. Write your plan in such a way that nothing breaks. All right, and again, I'm not having it write code yet, just the plan, because this is how we avoid all those errors. We're going to have it write the plan, and hopefully it does it in the right order of operations. And that's I mean, I could have told it that I'm not sure if this is in the right order of operations, but either way, it should do a pretty good job of figuring out the order of operations part. The core transformation involves moving the flat list. Yeah, okay, blah, blah, blah. All right, I don't really care. I just want to make sure that it's writing a really comprehensive plan. I want it to at least give the appearance of seeming like it knows that what this is going to take. So I'm going to go back here and take one of our prompts from here. And also from here, let's see. What did I say down here at the bottom of this prompt? Oh, yeah. I might just have to rewrite some of this. Go back up here. Whoops. And let's see, what do I want to steal from over here in this conversation? Yeah, let's do this too. Let's do... We don't want it to make the update yet. We're just going to have it do some more thinking first. Okay. I'm going to rewrite this part here. All right. Also make certain that you don't change any of the default text in the fields for the default Chrome extension, and how the icons display on the final output extension once installed. Please note that and ensure let's note that in the plan. And ensure your updates won't cause issues with very large file uploads. How can we solve for that? Do not write the code yet, just answer, making absolute certain that you don't change anything that doesn't need to be changed. Here's the original code for reference. And then, yeah, do not write the code. Again, I'm just making sure we're adding enough context. Just add detail to the plan. And then once we do have it write the code, I'm still going to add this one more time. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and steal this prompt over here. Okay, go ahead and update, making absolute certain. Here, I'm going to steal this prompt here. But I'm also going to take this plan and copy that into our prompt. Even though it's right here, I'm just going to reiterate it. So take the exact plan that it gave us and output or paste that into our prompt. So it's now in there twice, essentially. And let's see. Integrate the requested features while maintaining the application stability, single file architecture, and user-friendly design. All right, now we're going to add let me copy all this, because sometimes when you add canvas, it removes your prompt, but that looks like maybe they fixed that issue. Okay, here we go. We're going to try to make all those edits. So, you know, we're a ways in. It's it's taken some time, but you know, we're an hour and a half on. But now we're finally making all the edits that we wanted to make in the beginning. I know it took a ridiculously long time to get here, but that's just what you got to do to make sure that you don't get edits or get errors. And even then, we still might get errors. We're going to see real quick here when this outputs the final code here. We'll see how this goes, but this is how you do it. This is a process. It takes a long time, and it feels really tedious, but it's a heck of a lot better than chasing errors around and around. It's better to just do it right the first time and make sure that, you know, we started 3 different conversations. One, just to figure out which conversations we needed to have. And then this first conversation we really should have had, which was about updating the app to ensure it was the right in the right state to start adding our updates. And then we had the conversation about our actual updates. So that's probably going to be the case for you too. Whenever you make updates, you might get into the process and realize, oh man, I should have changed something else first. It's just there's so many things that you don't think of until you're halfway through a project, and so you just got to go through this iterative process. Do a few different conversations. Don't be afraid to start new conversations, and just use a prompt like this: list every element, function, variable, and constant, without a short description of each, something like that, and then dump your code in there. You might come up with a better prompt than me. As you notice, I edited it quite a bit and kept adding more detail in here and going back and forth, but eventually, hopefully, we got something that will work. We'll see. We're still waiting to find out if this is going to work. Let's see here. Okay, did it add? I see a drop down here, a root. Okay, but how do I add a new folder? Oh, new folder, interesting. Okay. New folder, but I don't know how to edit that folder. Oh, okay. New folder. Doesn't need to be like that. Could I just do new folder? Oops, got caps lock on. New folder? What would happen if I did that? Doesn't seem like it works. Oh, okay, it did, but all right. Well, it seems like it kind of worked. Okay, it changed it to there. Well, let's go ahead and test this out. I'm not going to be able to test it as a real Chrome extension. I can test out how this functionality works. It lets me add a new folder. Does it let me add a text file, upload asset? Here we go. All right, let's do a audio file. I've got a asset here, and I can put it in a folder. Okay. All right. Let's see what happens when I try to download. Okay, it's asking for an icon. That's good. I need to rearrange some of the UI. It's pretty messy here, but it seems like it's working. And we got our toast. Okay, well, there we go. We got all the functionality that we asked for and no errors. So, I mean, so far, it's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and open that extension, or that extension folder. Just make sure, oops, that our icon's there. Yeah, our new folder and our file. Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll just play.
Today.
Yep, okay, audio is playing. That's a good sign. Everything's working. Cool. All right, well, that's how you do it. Yeah, took us an hour and a half, but we got here. And it won't take you quite that much time, but I was just being very, very thorough so you could see every possible consideration. And yep, that's how you make edits to your application without any errors. Just keep creating new conversations, keep adding new context, keep, just make the plan before you make the edit, and make sure that you review the plan with the AI, and make edits to the plan as you go. And then if you see something that needs to change before you make the edits, then go start a new conversation, make that change, and then start a new conversation to make the edits. That's how you do it. So hope that helps, and I'll see you again next time. Like I said last time, and like I'll probably do for the near future, I'm not going to plan these out. I'll just do them as I think of new ideas. So if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat, and I'll be happy to, or drop them in the comments below this video once it posts. I'll be happy to address them in my next video. Thanks for watching.